Thank you for joining us for the As the Leader Grows podcast, where we are crazy passionate about helping business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. And today, I have got one of my dearest friends, one of my guys, one of my close guys, my 5 guys in the country. To be honest with you, my man Brian Covey, all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. Guys, this dude is absolutely a machine. He is a senior vice president for Loan Depot. I think they did like 800 gazillion trillion Google dollars last year in loans, in the mortgages. He's an unbelievable leader, a podcast host, author, and he's just an amazing human being. So, Brian Covey, what's up, homie?
What's up, dude? Ken, I can't wait, man. I love anytime we get to chat. You know what I love is I leave smarter, feeling better about myself. I've learned something that I can share with other people. That's who I want to be around. Hey,
I'm going to start off with this. We didn't even talk about this. We've got a text thread. We've got goosebumps. Look at that. That's crazy. We've got an amazing group of guys. Me and you, Brent Gove, top guys of the EXP, Randy Garn, the most connected man on the planet, Gary Brecka, who never runs out of energy. He does travel. We were talking off air about you and I traveling so much. He travels probably 4 times more than both of us combined. Yeah. And then my good friend Master Jeff, all the way out in Calabasas. Talk about those relationships, Brian, and how just even the simple brotherhood, if you will, or the relationships that we formed through a text thread where we're literally texting each other back and forth pretty much all day long with really 6 world-class human beings.
I'll tell you this, it's almost like a once in a lifetime when you can put that type of energy, that type of just like powerful people on a text thread. You never know when you need that little bit of inspiration. You're having something that didn't go your way, or you get to celebrate a win and you want people to be able to celebrate with you. What I would tell you is, it goes like, for me, it's like sports days, right? Like you want to be around people that are going to make you better. Iron sharpens iron. We've heard it, but to see it, and I would encourage anybody listening, if you have that opportunity, you either need to create it or you need to find people that have that and plug in, because without that, I think you're missing what God's designed of these smaller communities, this smaller group. I mean, sometimes it's jokes, sometimes it's funny. Yeah. You know, we see pictures of the family, we see pictures, all kind of stuff going on. And for me, it inspires me to think bigger, to dream bigger about what's possible. But it also reminds me how much we're alike and we're connected, and how like we're created to serve other people. And what are my unique gifts that I can bring into this group? And I'll tell you what I love the most about this group, Ken, is it's one of the few groups I've been a part of that egos to the side, guys that are highly successful at multiple levels, and you never get a sense that you're not valued, that you're not part of that group, and that people don't want you there. And so I would just say, man, step into that. When you're given the opportunity like you gave me, and we were talking about that, it's like, sign me up, I'm in.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? You said something just a minute ago about leaving egos at the door. We just finished you're part of our mastermind. You haven't made one yet. Because as we talked about off air, you're traveling more than I am. You're everywhere. You're everywhere. And I keep choosing mastermind days that are on your birthday and all kinds of stuff for you. So, but Scottsdale, we're going to get Scottsdale down for you in November. You talked about leaving egos at the door. Probably one of my greatest moments over the past mastermind we had in Sundance was Randy brought a really good friend in. He's a financial services guy, over 100 million in his business. He's a part of 3 or 4 of the top masterminds in the country. Just bought his first jet in the last few months. And he sat through Thursday night, our dinner and our gratitude exercise that we did. And he was one of the guys to kind of go last. And he just said, man, I've never seen anything like this before. Like most masterminds I'm a part of. And he's in the big ones like Tiger 21, $10 million net worth to be able to get in. I mean, there's some very high level ones, that this guy's a part of. And he said the exact same thing you just said. He goes, man, every one of you guys check your ego at the door. And I had 5 8-figure earners in that room that night. 5 guys that are making over $1 million a month, and a lot of 7 figures, and a lot of people making multiple 6 figures a year. Yeah. And he said, most masterminds I go to, he said, the first 2 minutes when somebody has a microphone and they get to talk, they're talking about how awesome they are. He goes, in this mastermind, all everybody does is talk about how awesome everybody else is. talk about the concept of being a servant leader and what that looks like, Brian, as you grow, maybe an entrepreneur, or you work for somebody else, but talk about that concept of being a servant leader and how that helps you.
Yeah, well, one, I would just echo that because that's the feeling you get. Like even at the create event and you're just around people, I think you attract people like that because that's who you are.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties in servant leader. I think about this as like, when Nicole and I got married, we just celebrated 20 years, and then I've got our 3 kids, and that's my first responsibility is like here, and then that branches out to our team. But I need to get those things right and how I show up every day. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to work out. Like I see you posting your videos, Ken. Like it motivates me some days. I post my stuff, and people are like, why are you doing that? I'm like, because it holds me accountable. It also shows the consistency. You can't fake consistency for long. You can't
Yes.
fake results. And so a servant leader to me is somebody that shows up and just doesn't talk about what they're going to do. They're doing it, and they're also bringing other people with them, right? I think I shared my vision with you was I want to create leaders that create other leaders that create other leaders. And to me, that's servant leadership is not just starting and ending with you. While that's important, while you've got to lead yourself, while you've got to be locked in on who you are and where you're going, the reality is the best leaders and the best truly servant leaders create other leaders that serve that way. That is how you exponentially grow, right? And you come, what they talk about in the military, like that force multiplier. You are now making this massive impact because you took the step forward just to take care of what you needed to do, bring your uniqueness to the world and share that. Share your talents, man. God's gifted you. I believe this and I know you believe this. God's gifted you with experiences, trials, tribulations, wins, losses, all of it to put you right where you are to serve somebody today. You just got to show up.
I love it. And that in a way, nobody else can.
That's right.
John Maxwell says, a friend of both of ours, John Maxwell says, you don't reproduce what you know, you reproduce who you are. So how important is it? And you're talking about reproducing leaders and leaders that lead, leaders that create leaders that create leaders that create leaders. How important is it for you? You talked about the consistency and the discipline and all of the things that you do. I mean, you're a former, a very high level sports, former professional soccer player, all the things that you've done. How important is personal development to you, Brian, in being able to taking that John Maxwell quote, don't reproduce what you know, you reproduce who you are. How does that drive you in your own personal development?
So this belief for me that I'll share has been proven over and over. And I look back even as a teenager, as a young kid and all of that to now to where I am kind of mid 40s is, I believe this, you're either growing or you are dying. You're not staying the same every day. And I would just tell you, like, I look back to even when I was really overweight as a 13-year-old and I struggled with that and all that. And it's like, I'm going one way or the other. I'm either getting less healthy or I'm getting more healthy. You're not staying the same every day. And I think about personal development that same way of as an athlete, it was instilled in me, and I'm blessed because I had some of the best coaches, got to compete, with our Olympic team and the national team and train with all these guys. And so I saw what the best was. So personal development was instilled in me, and that competitiveness is one of my top 5 traits. But I've realized now, how do you harness that in personal development so that it's about more than you? But I'll come back to this. If you can't lead yourself, I don't know of any great leader that is not leading themselves first. And they're taking care of their health, mental health and physical health. They're taking care of their faith, their spiritual side, their relationships, all of these things, and into your finances. You're going to start to see who you are becoming is going to be basically manifested out in those areas. And so if you don't take control of those, I've adopted this philosophy. We were talking about Ben Newman earlier of attack the day, win the day, be where your feet are. And so each day I've really simplified it. I used to overcomplicate it and I struggle with this. It's like, I got these big goals for like the next 10 years, the next 5 years. And I struggled. It wasn't working for me. When I adopted that of like win the day, personal development got real and I could see results. And it would also help me take these standards that I would set and be able to basically outwit and outperform my feelings. The days I didn't want to show up to work out, the days I didn't want to make the extra sales calls, the days on the weekends that I knew I need to go to open houses or do things around with my family. Those are the things, look, we all have the feelings, but are you committed to actually do the actions over those? That's going to separate your personal development from up here to actions.
Yeah, I love that. And again, we're talking about, we talk a lot about here, and I am crazy passionate about helping business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. And you are talking about confidence because that personal development journey for you, it builds confidence. And, you know, I say a lot, confidence is currency. You spend it every single day in the relationships you build in every decision that you make. You talked about servant leadership and talked about leadership. And, you know, John Maxwell, again, I'll go back to John because he is the leadership guru of the last 40 years. You know, John always says, if you think you're a leader and no one's following, you're only out taking a walk. You know, you're on the, it's almost like Frank the Tank in Old School streaking. He goes,
Yeah,
we're streaking. There's nobody behind him, right? It's almost one of those things. Obviously the market shifted. You know, you're in mortgage, you got one of the, you're, you know, senior VP at one of the top mortgage companies in America. And you guys have went through some transition over the past few months. And one of the things we talked about off air was there's some last, what I call last 10% conversations. Mm-hmm. As a leader, when you're having to downsize your organization, going through what we're going through in this economy right now, especially in the mortgage field, because I was a mortgage broker for about 8 years as well. Talk to me from the leadership perspective when you have to make tough decisions and you have to have those last 10% conversations. Talk to me about how you process that through your heart, Brian.
So for me, what I've gone through in this, Ken, is it's been a tough cycle in our industry. We've seen, 50% drop off. We all know what's happening in the economy and all that. But I go back to when I've been laid off before in 2007, 2008, and lost my job. Lost my job again as we started to expand and the market changed and we downsized there. Then I was let go from another organization. And you go back to those experiences and you go, okay, how did I feel? What did they say? Because you don't remember a lot of the words a lot of times, but you remember how that person made you feel. And I know this is cliche to some, but the reality is unless you have a relationship with someone up front, these 10% conversations are going to be really hard. They're going to be even harder than they should be. And so your ability today to connect and be relatable with your team and to share when you've been through this before. And so I've been leading over the past several months as the market shifted of, hey, I remember when my job was eliminated. Here's what was happening. Here are the things that were going on. As I look back, here are the things I could have controlled better. Here are the lessons I took from it. And you're empowering your team to say, hey guys, here's where we are. Here's the opportunity at hand. Here's what we could do. Because here's what I would have done differently. So as I approach those conversations, you have to be relatable, showing empathy to your team. You hear Gary Vee and some folks talk about it. In real life, the way it looks to me is, when you show up, be real on the call, right? A lot of people want to fake, they want to dance around it. They want to, they feel like they can't say enough. Be you. Because if a different Brian shows up on that phone call to let somebody go or to let them know their job's eliminated or we're changing this or changing that, they're going to sense the fakeness. They're going to sense that you're not real. And they're immediately going to be like, something ain't right.
That's good.
That would be my advice. The energy that you're putting off, how I prep for those, I think is the most important, Ken, is, I was taught visualization from my dad and sports and all of that at a young age. I will actually visualize those calls before I go in. And this is a man of faith, is I'll actually pray before I go on that call. It's like, God, give me the right words to say, help them receive the message that's there. And I'm praying for a new opportunity to be birthed from that. Because here's what I believe is the times that I was impacted and my job was eliminated, I was let go, it actually was a catalyst for my personal growth. And so I share that with people is, this might suck in the moment, but here's how I turn that around. You can do the same thing, right? Like, you got to be real.
Yeah. One of the things you just said, I love what you just said. You said, if you have a relationship with them, or if you don't have a relationship with them, those last 10% conversations can be very hard. They're hard anyway. But what do you do as a leader to make sure that you are constantly building a relationship with your team so that when you have to have those last 10% conversations, they're not as painful as they can be?
I'm gonna give you a different answer than probably some people have shared. Because I think some of the givens, right, are you need to be connecting with your team, seeing them in person. That's back to normal now, having the conversations. You need to know about their family, right? Like, have conversations that are not about the business. I think people know that. I'm gonna give you something that's helped me over the past few years that I look back, almost like a case study that I wish I had known before. I went all in on building my personal brand, not for the reasons people probably think. Because a lot of people are like, oh, you're gonna get attention, you're gonna do this, do that. It was the biggest move I could have made, Ken, during all of the remote work, all of the things that we couldn't get together in person. You didn't have those opportunities. And so I showed up on social and started sharing my family, my dogs, what I'm doing. I checked in on them. I intentionally engage with them on social, and it's not an either or, it's and all of these other things. And I think what I've heard from our team at least is like, Brian, dude, we love seeing you show up there, but more importantly, you come encourage us. Like you're part of our life. Like you show up where we show up.
Yeah.
And if your team's on TikTok or they're on Facebook or they're on Instagram or wherever they are, look, it's 30 minutes out of your day for most people to go online, be intentional, and engage and leave real, thoughtful, meaningful comments about, Ken, man, I saw that your daughter was just traveling out there with you to Sundance. I'm sure that's amazing for you.
Yeah.
What a great trip, right? Like be real with people. And I think leaders miss that opportunity. Is the new kind of digital world that we all live in is people spend time on these platforms. So if you're missing that as a leader, I'd tell you, you're actually missing an opportunity to build that relationship on a different level than you could just trying to do it, with other ways that we talked about. So for me, that's been something I've leaned in on.
Do you think that, or let me ask you this, why do you think it's difficult for some leaders in some high level positions to really be genuine and authentic and lean into people's personal lives and show interest in what they're going on or what they're doing and what's going on in their lives?
Man, great question. We were actually talking about this the other day. I think probably like all of us, we all have a bit of insecurity. And I think that manifests itself when people are leaders. And I think about when I was coming up in the business, and it's like the leaders that were there then versus now, and how they would dress and how they would talk and the things that they would talk about, it didn't really create that relationship. And I think for leaders today, they probably don't see anybody else doing it. Maybe that they see, they're afraid of it because it's probably going to feel way outside of their comfort zone. And they don't know how to do it. And they feel like that insecurity would then be portrayed and they would not be good at it. I think that's why we all don't go do something. We go, hold on, but if I know that's going to work, but I'm not willing to do it, I'm the one holding myself back. And so I think that's it. Oscar, when you break it all down, you can give all these other reasons. It's just back to like insecurity.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great answer. And I do think it's insecurity. And I think some of that insecurity, as you mentioned, is rooted in that they've never seen it done a healthy way. They've never been in a healthy culture. And in some of the conversations I know that you've had to have, because we talked a pretty good bit over the past couple of months with you guys downsizing and letting, especially on the refi side with the rates going up and everything that's happening there, having to have those conversations, but doing it through the lens of remembering what it was like when you were on the other side of that conversation is hard. Dude, somebody, little birdie told me you are relaunching a book that you wrote. You got a copy of that little book right there, my friend?
We do.
Come on, my man. Conversations with Covey. Tell us about the book, man. Tell us about what the book, tell us about what's the somebody in our audience orders it. We'll put a link on this on where they can get it at. Tell me what they're going to walk away with, Brian.
I love it. So it was really created out of what I saw was a need in my own life and others that I talked to on the show. And it was people desiring a breakthrough in their life, but they didn't know how to create it. They didn't know what the next step was. They didn't have anybody to look to go, hey, who's been through this before? Who can I look to that's going to help me through it? And so what I did is I took 11, and you'll know Dave Meltzer is one of them. Took 11 of the best guests with feedback, and people could relate to their stories and what they had been through. And some of our co-authors in there had been on Shark Tank, and they've launched multi-million-dollar companies, and one battling cancer in the financial services industry. So you've got a wide range of people that'll relate to where you are and your family. But what this book will allow you to do, I think, above anything that I've ever read before, it condenses all these stories, and it actually gives you the keys and that combination for you to create wins in your life, no matter where you are. And I truly believe that. If you're broke and you're homeless and you're living right now, that's your world, this can help you. If you're a multi-millionaire and you have things going on there, there's probably things in there, especially with, Meltzer talking about gratitude and how you actually incorporate that in. There'll be something for everyone. And what I liked about it and the feedback is you can read one chapter, you could read 4 chapters, you can read them all, give them to people in your life to bless them and to help encourage them. So we are relaunching it because, it's like anything I learned through this process. First time launching a book, we launched it, kind of sent it over. And then I had people buying like hundreds of copies for their sales teams and for events and all of this. I thought, I mean, I like the book. I'm biased. And so we're going to relaunch it because we do believe there's some conversations in there.
Yeah.
There's some messages that need to be delivered in today's world to give some hope, inspiration, and encouragement. But more importantly, on the backside, teach you the steps that you need to win.
Is there a favorite story out of there for you?
You know, Meltzer's probably the one that's impacted me the most personally.
Yeah,
I would share that. That was one that, and you know this, like you leave conversations with certain people and it changes how you think, which then can change your beliefs, which change how you act. And so that one was the one that stood out to me. But, you know, I've had, unfortunately, some people in our life that have been battling with cancer, and there's a chapter in there. And that for me is like, to be able to share something like that with someone in their time of need. I don't know the words to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that will help with the conversations. And that's why we said it's conversations. It's very much a dive into it. This is your conversation. Jump right in with us and then write your story.
I love that. What would you say to leaders right now? What would you say to leaders right now as the economy's kind of shifted? Leaders who are, you've got all kinds of different people that may have just lost their job, downsizing, people that are, because this is the one thing I'm talking about with my real estate team now. Yeah. Like, it's not like shooting fish in a barrel anymore. Like no. we just put it one under contract that we listed about 2.5 weeks ago, that 2 months ago would have had 13 offers on it in 3 hours. Oh, yeah. It was so insane. And it's not that way. And I'm telling them, okay, guys, here's some things you've got to do to double down to add value now to your clients. But what would you say to people that are in the mortgage industry, in the real estate industry right now, with the shift that we're seeing in the market?
So here's what I've experienced in my life. I go back to 2007, 2008 crash, right? We just had our first 2 kids. And, I look back, like couldn't be any worse of a scenario, right? Like the dad who's working, Nicole had stepped away to help with the kids and not nursing. And I look back to those moments that have happened. And what helped me through it was paying for proximity, joining groups of people that could help me through it. Because I believe this, you can't get through it by yourself. Right. And what I would share with anybody that's going through it is, while everyone else is retreating, and trust me, 90% probably are in your life today, even if you're well connected, there's 90% that they're being forced down by the law of average, is what we call it. Yeah. And they are pulling back here and there. And tactically, I could go into all that of how you can go through your budget and find money to do this. But the simple message would be pay for proximity. Whatever that looks like for you in your market is pay to get in the rooms or around people that think bigger than you, that are having success at a higher level, that have been through these seasons. Guys like us that I've been through this 21 years. I know what the roller coaster looks like. I know what to expect, and I can guide you through it. So finding that mentor, that coach in your life, and I use this number, Ken, I've been sharing this lately with people, is I went back, and I'm kind of an analytical guy in some of these, and I realized in my seasons of growth, I was spending at a minimum of 10% of my income. My biggest seasons of growth right now, last year, the year before, the last few years have been exponential. I was actually spending closer to 20%.
Wow.
Just give you like real numbers. Let's not sugarcoat this. Let's be real. Yeah. So if you want the results, the people that are going to get them, that top 10%, they're paying for proximity to be around the right people in the right rooms, because I believe this, you're not going to get there by yourself. So let people help you.
Yeah. I mean, I spend 5 figures a month. It's cost me 5 figures a month, and it's about 130-40K. I spend a year on coaches and advisors, and it really is, you make one mistake in the industry we're in and what we do, it can cost you. You get one piece of advice, and dude, you can exponentially take that 10K a month I'm spending, and it's all of a sudden, that 10K turns into 120K. So it's a huge thing. Tell me what's next. What's next for Brian Covey, podcast wise, author wise? Tell me what's going on, man.
Man, so I've been, and part of the group that we have, right, is challenging you to think bigger. And so what I've been working on the past few years is we've had some great years and all those things, and I've learned how to diversify out income wise, so I can also diversify out time wise. Because my main thing, and I've heard some great people like Ed and some of the guys lately, my main thing is growing our team here, taking care of my group here, taking care of my family. But what's cool is when you get that in a rhythm and you're serving in your purpose, is then other opportunities come to you that I have been very, I will say, focused on, in the sense of aligning myself with the right people, so that when opportunity comes up, they think about Brian, and they bring me into opportunities that 5 years ago, Ken, I wasn't even in the conversation. I wasn't even there. And so I'm looking at that, because what I wish they had taught us all in school was how to be great at that one thing. But oh, by the way, there are other ways to generate wealth and to generate freedom in your life so you can go do the things that you really want to do with your kids and your family and your business and reinvest. And I'll tell you this story. People a lot of times like, well, hold on, how's that all that work? I go, look, I took some of the success we had and I've hired coaches for our team, and I'm bringing in people to coach our team because, the best asset is our leaders. And so if you're a leader today, that would be my challenge to you is where can you reinvest back in your team? Your company doesn't have to do it. It's not their responsibility to do it. As the leader, it's your responsibility. So that's where I'm leaning in is, dude, how many more people can I bring into the party so that we can make a bigger collective impact? And we're chasing, I know you mentioned the numbers earlier, but we wrote down a big dream of 10 billion for our team.
Wow.
Yeah.
10 billion. That's a little number, ain't it?
that's like a top 10 mortgage company just in our group.
I love it, dude. I love you said just a minute ago about helping other people, about sowing into their development. And it leans into my favorite Zig Ziglar quote. If I help enough people get what they want, eventually I'm going to get what I want. And you are a leader, you're a very selfless leader who is focused on other people and helping them win at levels and becoming the best version of themselves. What are some of the things that Brian Covey is doing with his team that nobody else may know about or nobody else may be doing?
That's how we talked about the investment piece that's there. What I have been studying and learning about areas that I didn't understand, right? Some of this passive income stuff you talk about there. Mm-hmm. I've been studying leadership. My dad was a psychologist. I've gone back and I'm actually rereading a lot of, psychology and how people are thinking post pandemic and what's happening there, this remote work. And I think the student in me is where I've really been going back to some books. One I read the other day that I remember with Jocko and Leif, Extreme Ownership. And I thought, okay, this is one I can go into. I'm studying every day. And I'll tell you what's helped me is my executive coach that works with me, Ken, is we've identified some areas very tactically that I can implement and improve on. I like that. Like as an athlete, if you're telling me as a player, okay, I need to work on my right foot. I need to work on speed of play. I need to see this or see that on the field with my vision. Like where can I go and implement it? And so where I am right now is hyper focused on those areas, learning the skills that I believe are required today. And we talked about communication. Mm-hmm. If you can learn those skills and practice them to get better, then you're a better teacher for your team. And I'll tell you the one thing I've done that most people probably don't see or maybe even are not doing today. I share a lot of my growth journey with my team. I was afraid to do that years ago. I was afraid they might look at me and go, hold on, you got a coach and they're telling you this and they're telling you that, and you're sharing that with us. And like, maybe they're going to think less of me. Ken, I'll tell you, as soon as you open that, and I don't go out, like, I don't whine about this. I'm not complaining about that. I'm like, you know what, guys, here's something my coach shared with me. I'm working on that. Will you help me? If you see me doing this or doing that, will you share that with me? The best leaders today are partners in the business and they collaborate with their team. And it's not I'm your boss, all this kind of, that's what I would tell you is people don't see these one-off conversations that we're building trust. The toughest markets actually, I believe, allow you to build the most trust the fastest because you're real with people and you pick up the phone and you lean in on hard conversations versus not having them.
Right.
Being weak when you show up. Right. Like all of that. That's what I would say is
I love it, dude.
Maybe don't see.
Guys, Brian Covey dropping bombs. I'm gonna call Brad Lee and tell him I'm gonna call Brad and tell him I'm stealing his podcast title. I'm gonna go get me one of those little pads he's got next to him because I've done closure school a couple of times for Brad where you press the bomb. He's got machine guns, he's got bombs, he's got all kinds of sound effects in that little doohickey next to him. Brian, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you, my friend?
Yeah, so hook me up over on Instagram is where I hang out quite a bit. So it's at the Brian Covey there. You got www.briancovey.com. You can just look me up anywhere. I spend time there. And what I would say is if you send something in a DM or a comment or something there, that is me. I engage in those. That's how we've built our community. And I would love to hear if this has impacted you or any way that I can be of service. That's how we make the world a better place together.
I want to ask you one more question before we get done. I heard this. I've been on a soapbox for a week. I heard somebody say this on a podcast. The person who said it, I know, and the person's podcast, I know. And this is what the person said on the podcast. They said, you only have one life to live. Live it for yourself and not anyone else. When you hear somebody say something like that, what is that? What is that? How does that make you feel?
Doesn't resonate with me. That screams selfish. And I don't actually believe we were created for ourselves. We were created in God's image to serve other people. And if you just look at that, I mean, even Jesus is the best example, right? He came to serve others. And so that's who I'm going to model after. That's what I believe. That's my choice.
Yeah.
So I would just say, while they might have had good intentions, maybe it's taken out of context. We'll give them a little grace on this one.
Yeah.
I do believe language matters. And if you were to share that with a group of people, they're not feeling that. That's not something that I believe builds community, and like what you're building and what I want to build. I don't think that actually makes a collective impact across the world as big as they could have. And they're probably limiting their actual impact that they could make in the world.
And the thing for me in that was in this area or in this arena of self-development, there's a lot of that. There literally is a lot of that around. That's the first time I heard it and I went, what did they say? Rewind, played it again. I listened to it like 4 times and I'm like, I know you just didn't say that like out loud in front of everybody else to hear. Why is it important, Brian, for people to get connected with authentic, selfless leaders and follow and learn from? Speak to the importance on that before we get out of here today.
I'll just speak from my experience. Ken, as I've gone through my life, the mentors and coaches, my dad being one of the best ones, and my mom and all that, if I didn't see the way, I didn't know what was possible. And so for guys like you that have come in, you mentioned our small group, like if you don't know what's possible, it's hard for it to be reality. Like I think about this, I go back to visualization is one of the best tools that I learned as a teenager, right? So I mentioned that about sports. I use it today, but imagine if I couldn't visualize this best version of Brian serving the world and doing that. Well, I would only be able to visualize a smaller version or what I know today. So unless you can expand your mind, and I think about even last weekend, Nicole and I traveled for our 20th anniversary and I saw this really cool island and people doing things. I'm going, until you're exposed to new ideas, new belief systems, you're only thinking with what you know. And the way you grow is to be in a great community, have people that have done what you want to do, and they challenge you. Because look, the 4-minute mile was never run until somebody said, maybe it's possible. But it was done. Yeah. Somebody believed they could go do it. So why not you?
And not only was it done, but it was broken about 4 more times in the next 4 or 5 months because people broke the ceiling and everybody else looked around and went, oh, this is possible.
That's right.
This is why, like our text thread, our mastermind, the guys that we spend time with, this is why those relationships, I tell people all the time, is the number one thing you need as a leader. Yeah. Our relationships with people who are a few steps ahead of you, circle and corner. 12 people, 10, 12 people you spend the most time with in the corner. Those are the guys that have that 10,000 foot view. Bro, it's been a pleasure, man. It's been an absolute joy. Guys, listen, Brian probably is, and I'll say this in front, I've never said this to you. I don't even know I've ever said this public because I haven't had the opportunity. Brian is one of the sharpest, most intelligent, caring leaders that a lot of people don't know about. Dude, I'm excited to watch you as your platform grows. And I've watched already it grow over the past 1.5 to 2 years. I'm excited as your platform continues to grow because really you embody the type of leader that I believe God wants in the marketplace to show them. And it's funny, you mentioned just a minute ago, our core 5 in our mastermind are faith, health, relationships, business, and finance in that order. And you literally went through them just a minute ago and mentioned almost every one of them. I think the business was the only one you kind of thought, but you went to finances. I'm excited to see what God does with you and how he uses you in the future, just because of your heart, dude, and how much you care for and love people. So it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Dude, thank you. What an honor. And I am learning to accept that. That's one of the things I'm working on, is accepting what God has given all of us and owning it and showing up in the world, playing big.
I love it. Hey guys, thank you for joining us on this episode of the As the Leaders Grows podcast, where we are crazy excited and passionate about helping business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. Until next time, we'll see you on the other side.